Welcome back to Mom and Son Market Talks. It has been a minute, Mom. How are you?
I'm good. I've missed you.
I miss you too. Thankfully, for everybody's sake, we've talked plenty during this time, but we have not made it back on film. So I'm excited today to kind of talk through what's new. It's like so much has changed since we did this last at the end of last year, I believe. So we basically had all of 2022 and the craziness that it's brought to come up with new content.
Yeah, it's been a whole new game and it's going to continue to change, I think. So I thought we would share what we've seen and what we think's coming.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, let's just start there then. If you want to just dive in, I think I would be really curious to know, particularly in Doylestown in your market, what you've seen in the last 6 months, because I know how crazy of a roller coaster ride it's been here in Chicago.
Yeah, so, last year was a crazy thing. Everybody was running out to see homes the first hour that they listed and they were buying things sight unseen. They were paying crazy prices and all that. And then the Fed made his announcement in May that rates were going up 0.75% in one day. And it was really sticker shock for a lot of people very quickly.
It was an
And so,
interesting day to say the least.
oh yeah. And they also, led with, and there'll be more to come.
Yeah.
We look forward to it. But what we're finding here anyway is that buyers are still out there. The buyers that were out there before, there's like a pool of them. They're still out there and they're buying up what inventory there is. And sellers are quickly putting everything on the market because they have, FOMO, fear of missing out. Oh my gosh, I missed the top. So I
Right.
think we're going to work through those for a minute. And then things are going to settle down a little bit. We're going to normalize, in my opinion, a little bit.
I think we're seeing something similar here. I won't use the term the losers, but in some way, the people who weren't able to excel, right? I mean, they're still on market. So when I see numbers about Chicago that say our inventory has been improving over the last few months, I'm hesitant to believe that because part of me believes that we just have inventory that didn't move, which is normal. And you should have some inventory that stays on market for a little bit longer. But I do think that we've got a base of sellers who most likely are priced a little bit high. And so they're sitting on market and they're struggling right now. But I think that that is causing some changes to how buyers behave. Negotiations are back. We're not seeing as many multiple offer situations. I can't remember the last time somebody waived an appraisal or mortgage contingency or something like that. So, whereas at the end of 2021, even the first few months of this year, I think people were throwing everything in the kitchen sink to win deals because they had to. After March, the brakes really got pulled. And that, I mean, it was almost directly related to the interest rates.
Yep, I agree. And sellers are going to be a lot slower to respond to the pricing than they were when it was going up, right? And we
Yeah.
still have sellers going, well, I can still get that crazy town number because my neighbor did 5 months ago. Well, 5 months ago was 5 months ago.
Right.
So sellers have to get a little more reality. And you're right, buyers are saying, I think I do want to inspect it now. And the appraisal does matter now. So we're seeing all of that. And we're also seeing, it's funny, I had a buyer he bought a home, he and his wife bought a home, and they had 16 offers and they won. They
Wow.
beat 15 of the people. A number of months went by before they could sell their home because they were leasing back to that homeowner. And when they sold their home, they only got 2 offers and they were totally disappointed. I said, they're both great. They're both over ask. So who cares if there's not
Why do you
16?
need
But
16? Yeah. Yeah.
the mindset, it was almost like gambling. Everybody was like, woohoo, throw me a seven, It's been kind of crazy.
Well, and I think it's overcorrected because I have sellers where what I'm advocating for them is just patience because when we don't sell in an hour, people panic. Yeah,
Right.
I'm seeing now where I've been on the buy side of somebody making an offer that was lower, about 4% off list on the first day something was on market and just waiting. And sure enough, 4 days later, when the sellers didn't have another offer, they called
Mhm.
us like, let's negotiate, let's get this done, right? 4 days. And I'm thinking in my mind, your average market time really, they're well under that, right? And I just think that they're so panicked about making sure they make the right decision or making sure they get under contract quickly that they're losing an opportunity to probably get a better deal if they just stayed on market for a little bit longer.
Oh yeah, pre-COVID, I'd have to look, but our average time on market was like 70 days,
Oh yeah.
which is not very long.
Yeah.
But then during COVID and then last year, um, it was like hours. You could say the
Yeah.
home was gone in hours.
Yeah, we had a point where I want to say the city was moving under 7 days, which is
Yeah.
ridiculous. Just no matter what neighborhood, no matter what product category, it was under 7 days on market. We've moved well away from that, right? And it's no longer like you need to go to the first open house, or you're not going to have a chance to make an offer, thankfully. But I do think it's still shorter than a normal market, 20 days, 30 days. I think we're more used to like 45 to 60 in a traditional market. So we're still like half the market time of what a balanced market is. It's just not at breakneck speed like it was for 18 months or whatever.
Yeah, and I think sellers need to adjust to that, and buyers are finally getting some breathing room because they were really SOL a lot of the
Yeah.
time. They were trying, and couldn't get their properties because they weren't fast enough or they didn't do this craziest thing. And so now
Right.
we're getting to the point where you can take a minute, just take a breath and go,
Yeah.
is this the house I want? And if so, do I want to inspect it? And do I want to know what it's worth? Big questions to ask, and I think it's fine that they're asking them.
In Pennsylvania, is it a relatively buyer friendly contract process? As in, do they have a flexible period where if they find something during inspection, they could back out pretty easily, for example?
Sure. So we generally, the norm is 10 days, but you can write
Okay.
in whatever you want in the box. Sometimes they shorten it, sometimes it's 15. And
Right.
usually within that time, you can get everything. We have septic and well water here quite a bit of the
Hmm.
time. So that takes a minute. And so, yeah, generally speaking, a buyer has a back door. If they find something that they don't like during that inspection period, without explanation, they can cancel the contract, get their earnest money, and go away. We don't promote that as a backdoor, as in just put in an offer and we'll get you out if you don't like it.
Right.
But it's certainly there as a protective layer. Let's say you get in and you find out that the HVAC system is toast or the septic system or something big, and you
Right.
have neither the resources or the time. You can either say, fix it, give me the money, or I'm walking.
Or move on. Right.
Yeah,
And
how
that
about
that's
you?
exactly where I was leading with that question. Is I did feel like there was a period here where whether they were being coached or whether it was just the nature of the buying process, we had people leaning into attorney review, and they were using not only the 5 to 10 days they got for inspection, but in the case of buying condos, the additional sometimes 2 weeks that they got for condo docs to like decide if they wanted to actually buy that place. And I think that resulted in many, many canceled contracts. We saw more canceled contracts this spring than I'm really used to. And it was, I mean, I'm sure a lot drove it, but I think a lot of it was just indecision. People felt rushed to make a decision. They got under contract. They had a minute to think about it. And they're like, oh, this is not what I want to do. Right.
Right.
And I'm happy that we're moving away from that, because I do think that it was a manipulation of the buying process, of the contractual buying process.
Absolutely. Today in Inman, actually, there's an article about that. I think the number was 16% of all contracts in the month of June canceled, which is
Wow.
obscene. That's a
Yeah.
lot. On a normal market, I don't know what the number would be, but I can tell you in my own business, rarely does somebody walk
Rarely,
away.
right? I mean, and usually
Rarely.
it's a major inspection item or maybe a major appraisal miss, or, it's
Right.
something that functionally goes wrong in the process of reviewing. It has very little to do with buyer indecision.
And in a normal market, sellers play ball, right? So if you say,
Right.
my such and such failed on this test, but we need you to fix it, now you have something to talk about. But in the last year, sellers were going, fine, somebody else will buy it and not
Yeah.
care.
Walk away, whatever. I got 16 other
Not care.
offers. Yeah.
Right.
Right. Oh my gosh. I can't tell you, even to the day of closing, I had sellers threaten to cancel the deal if we asked for anything, right? A couple $100 credit. They'd be like, oh, we'll walk away. And I just think that mentality, well, if it exists, you're not going to win with it. It certainly needs to change moving into the rest of the year.
If those sellers were my children, I'd say, go to your room.
Go to your
It's bad
room.
behavior. Not good behavior.
I hope, and it's funny you say that, because I do think we actually got into a period there where negotiation was no longer feeling like good faith most times. Like I think,
No.
negotiations as I see it, we're all having the same conversation. We're just trying to reach neutral playing field, right? And move forward together. It became an argument for a while. Sellers weren't going to move because they had all the power. Buyers were pissed and competing with 40 other buyers and getting, very agitated and edgy with offers. It was just not amicable or really that fun to be involved in many times.
No, and people have said to me, I'm sure you too, oh my gosh, you must be loving this market. I'm like, I am not loving this market.
No, it's
You
about as
can't
stressful as it can get.
represent. Oh, it's, yes, it's busy and there's a lot going on, but you can't represent your buyers the way that they should be
No.
represented because they're just throwing it all out the
And
window.
the logic changes every day, right? The way that I run comps is changing month to month because of how the
Absolutely.
market's moving. So then what I advise in January doesn't hold in February. And so it's difficult. It's been really, truth, I feel professionally, it's pushed me to continue to educate myself all the time because the market
Right.
is just so in flux right now.
Well, and when you hear the market, it's an interesting thing too, because people go, what's the market doing? Well, real estate is hyper local. So
Right.
what's happening
Which part of
here?
it? Right.
Yeah.
And in
So
a
they
city
hear
like
like
this,
what's
we have
happening.
multi-units, we have condos, we have
Right.
land, we have homes.
Right.
So all of it moves at different speeds and different buyer rates. And,
Right.
so yeah, it is. I like that question because it involves a bigger conversation, but yeah, it's hard to answer how's the market doing just with a blanket statement.
It's like
Busy
saying
is how
what's
it's
the
doing.
weather outside,
Yeah.
where do you live,
Yeah.
you know.
Where? Yeah. Well, I don't know. There's
I'm
probably
excited
some.
that things are shifting. I think it's a good thing. I
Yeah.
think it's and sellers are still doing very well. Don't get me wrong; they're still way up from where
Yeah.
they were. And we're probably going to continue to increase at a slower pace, but it's still a strong seller's market. It's just not absurd.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, if it was increasing like this, it's starting to flatten. Right. So I think that you see articles and things that talk about the great correction or recession coming that'll cause a correction. I think the correction is really a movement away from rapid acceleration because we've been in
Right.
hyper growth. There's no way that you should be having double digit growth in a neighborhood that's already gentrified and appreciated every single year. That's not normal, right? And
Yeah.
so when we're seeing that across the United States, it's got to slow down. And some of these markets are going to feel it more than others, but I think that we're coming to a leveling off. It's just that's what we
I
have to
agree.
reach.
Well,
Now,
for
along those lines, though, I do think it's important for sellers to get ahead of that, right? Like where sellers, I don't know, 3 months ago, even probably could just take pretty pictures, even on their iPhone, and sell a home for 15 offers.
oh my
That is
gosh.
not going to be July, August, September, sales.
Well, the pictures, you bring that up. I always look at everybody's pictures, and sometimes I go down to see who the agent is. I'm like, who put these
Who
up? I
took
mean, they're
these? Yeah,
unbelievably bad, and they're not representing their seller. And
no.
either the sellers don't care or they don't know. But that is
Or the agent
not
was
how we
saving money, right? Well, it'll sell. I don't want to spend money on the photography, and like none of that is excusable. It needs to be done the right way.
Well, so that brings me to the next point I think we should maybe talk about a little bit is what should sellers be doing now? Because really, the days of I have dishes in the sink and dirty socks on the floor in my pictures or no
And who
pictures,
cares? Yeah,
they're gone. You need to
right,
buck up again and behave and do what sellers need to do. You're presenting a product to the market and it
right,
should be the very best version. I'm not saying you have to put on a new roof and repaint the whole house, but zhuzh it up a little bit, make
right.
clean landscaping, whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, we have to think about like the odds of success in any market. If there's you versus 20 homes, why would they buy yours? So you absolutely need to do your best to entice people to come in for showings. And the way you do that is with great media,
Mhm.
photography, video, floor plans, drones, if you want to go that way. I mean, there's a lot you can do. Now we have the 3D tours and the,
Yep.
virtual walkthroughs. But if you're not doing any of that, then you're trusting only your photos to entice me, the buyer, to come in and see the home. So I think the less work that you put into the beginning of the funnel, driving leads into the home, the less likely you are to sell that home. You might still get an offer eventually, and that's luck more than it is strategy. But I think that the best agents who are successful in these markets, particularly when it's not easy to sell, they have a very sound strategy to get leads in the door. That's all this is about. Get as many bodies in the door to see that home that could potentially buy it.
I tell my sellers it's like a job interview. You're interviewing for a position. So do you show up in your pajamas and you haven't had a haircut in 3 months? Or
Mm-hmm.
do you put on a nice outfit and you look put together? Make your house the very best interviewee for that job.
Right. Yeah.
So
100%. And it's not easy. Selling is a pain in the ass. You got to keep it clean. Sometimes you got to pay for staging depending on your situation. You're probably not going to like the showing request times when they come in. It might be at dinner. It might be first thing in the morning, especially if you got kids. It sucks. There's no two ways about it, but you have to go through those steps to make it easy for a buyer to understand and engage with your home so that then they can spend a lot of money on it. right? I mean,
If you
that's
remember as a kid, when we were selling a house, I'd go, okay, time to put the toys away.
everything in the baskets,
Here you
right?
go.
Yeah.
You had to go.
All the closets are exploding. It's like, don't open that one. Yeah.
Nobody look in the oven. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
but
it's
yeah, I
just,
mean, that's part of it. And
it
it's
is.
comes with every sale.
Yeah, and sellers need to wrap their head around the fact that they've had a good run and, things are still really good, but now they need to do what needs to be done. And buyers are expecting that now.
Right.
They're no longer accepting less than they should.
I think that's accurate. And I think for a while where buyers, well, first it was they want to move in ready everything. Then we got into the market of no inventory. So they had to let go of that. And buyers were buying things and not negotiating for inspection items because they really couldn't.
Mhm.
Every deal was as is for like 6 months. Now
Mhm.
we're back at a point where if you're a seller and you have anything functionally wrong with your home, be prepared. You're going to get a credit or repair request 100%. Right.
Yep.
So either fix in advance if you're concerned about it, or at least make it look presentable, or expect that you're going to have to deal with the buyer who's coming after that in the future. There's just no two ways about it.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about fixing in advance because if you think about it, if you have a home, let's say, and around your door frame is all rotted,
Right.
if a buyer comes and looks at that, not only do they notice that, but they think, well, the seller didn't take care of this house. What
What
else
else
is
is
wrong?
rotted? Yeah.
So really, it behooves you to look at your house with buyer eyes or call us and we'll do that. That's part of our job. And
Right.
say, that stain on the ceiling, I can't tell you how many times I go, do you have a leak? No, that's from a roof leak 10 years ago. Well, why didn't you paint the ceiling?
Correct.
Paint the ceiling.
Well, and I think there's really never a situation in which you should hide anything. I'm a big fan of oversharing. If you have
Absolutely.
that water stain, yes, we had a professional come look at it. Here's when the leak was. Here's when it was done. We have a painter coming. They're just back scheduled. Give me the whole story so that I know you're on top of it. Yeah, it's not ideal, but you're on top of it. And I also think, taking that a step further, maybe if your door is rotted, but you don't have the time or the money to fix it up front, get the
Mhm.
quote and then share that with the buyers and then give them a rough idea. Tell them you went through the steps. It's the only rot spot you have. This is the quote to fix it. And you're willing to work with them with a credit. If the better you present your story, I think the less likely a buyer is to feel fear. And that, you don't want them to be afraid of buying your house.
Full transparency at all times.
Always.
You're going to document and you're going to show. I showed a house the other day, and the homeowner was a realtor, and she met me at the door to show me all the things that were wrong that she was getting fixed. And I thought that was great. She
Yeah.
didn't leave my imagination to wonder what that stain was and what that rot was, and
Right.
she told.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, we always ask that question, right? Are there any major concerns that the seller is aware of or anticipating? Are there any major repairs that you're preparing to make? So if they can just present a logical story, and as long as it's priced in accordance with those repairs being accounted for, everything's good. But I
and the
think
last thing
the
you
more you
want is
hide,
buyers.
the less likely it is to be successful.
Yeah, and you don't want buyers guessing. They're making stuff
Right.
up in their heads because it's always really
Yeah.
hard.
And let me tell you, as and I'm sure you would agree on the buy side, when we're going through like, hey, how do we do this credit request? We're packing in extra room on those credit dollars. If I think it's 1,000, I'm
Absolutely.
asking for 1,500, right? So
Absolutely.
there's always going to be, it's going to cost you more if you let me do it than if you do it, for sure.
So, do you bring in professional stagers on a regular basis?
I do. The way I manage it is as part of my listing or agreement is I bring you in for a staging consultation. So I have two stagers that I work with. One is for homes that are partially furnished, and then one is for homes that are vacant. Um, in my mind, most people, if they have some furniture, really don't need a lot of help. It's a lot of decluttering, maybe some pop pieces or accent pieces, some simple help like replace your towels with fresh white towels for the bathroom and remove the bath mats and get rid of the bananas in the kitchen. And, some of that is photography as well. But the bigger side of it is the empty home staging, right? I
Yeah.
do think that sellers moved away from that last year because it wasn't necessary for a little bit of time. But I think we're going to start to see that come back. And we'll see more and more people using at least empty room staging for some of the rooms in their home to help create a story so that they don't just have empty photos.
Well, and it's interesting because people in general don't have the art of scale in their head. So when
Right.
they walk in the bedroom, their bed never fits, no matter what size the room is. Their bed's
Always
always.
too small. Yeah.
And so I always tell my sellers, if you don't have furniture, get a blow up mattress or boxes the size of the appropriate bed and make it like a bed,
Yeah.
so people can see. Because
Yeah.
a house looks so much smaller, empty.
Mm-hmm. And I go back and forth. I like virtual staging. I like how it looks. And I do think the photos look nice when they come out. The disappointing part is then sellers walk in and it's not there. And or buyers, excuse me, walk in and it's not there. And their mind immediately goes to the same place. Oh, my bed wouldn't fit there. Right. They saw it, but they're like, oh, that must have been edited to fit,
Right.
So I go back and forth because I do think, particularly for bedrooms, it does make a difference if you have a bed in there, maybe a bed and two side tables to just show what it would look like.
Yeah, or a sofa or whatever.
Right.
And, exterior pictures, I just did one recently. We're not selling until the fall, possibly the winter. Well,
Mm-hmm.
it's beautiful now. So we took
Take them now.
all of the pictures now.
Yep.
And we're just prepping because why would you want gray, dull, living in Pennsylvania and Chicago, you get that yucky time of year pictures when you can have blooming green, lush, here's what you get pictures.
Well, and nothing will date your photos more than snow or dead trees or whatever else.
Christmas
Like when I'm
tree.
looking now in July and I see listing photos and their outdoor deck has a pile of snow on it, I'm like, oh, they've been on market a long time. So you don't want buyers to have that reaction, right? You want to have a fresh, clean, this is a new listing feel, no matter where you are in your life cycle.
So what are you advising buyers to do these days? What's shifted in that way?
Not much you can do with the interest rates. I mean, the same advice there that I've always given, which is bid it out, be competitive, go to a few different lenders to make sure you're getting somebody that you trust and somebody that's giving you a great deal and, make sure you're comfortable there. I do think now more than ever, preparation is key. So if you don't know what you want, if you haven't figured out your must have, must avoid lists in your ideal dream home, I think this is a very difficult market to be successful because there's not a lot of inventory to just go poke around and look at. And the stuff that you are seeing, while it's not selling in a day or an hour, it is moving relatively quickly. So I think the buyers that are winning are the buyers that know what they want and they're moving fast when they see it. So if you can get yourself to that point, have your team ready, you have your pre-approval in hand, you've got your real estate agent aligned, and you know what you're looking for, I think it's just timing then. Then you just continue to watch the market. Inventory is slow. So might only be a couple listings a week if you're lucky, but watch them and eventually something's going to hit.
Yeah, we're seeing more inventory, and for the first time in a long time, we're seeing price reductions.
Yeah, us too. In waves too, mass, lots of price reductions, which is interesting.
Yeah, and I think that the unnecessary buyers are going to maybe, as my mother would say, go lay down somewhere.
Yeah,
because people almost caught up in the frenzy. It's like called bandwagoning. Actually, is when you see everybody else doing the thing, so you go do.
You got to go. You got yeah, yeah.
I don't know that all of the buyers that are out there really planned on being buyers. They just got caught up in it. So is it a good time to be a buyer? I think it is. I think rates are still crazy good, even though they're not where they were.
Would you have gotten a better deal in January? Yes, absolutely. But are they good, relative to where they've been the last 10 years? Absolutely. So
yeah, I mean, the average is over 7. So we're still good.
Yeah. Particularly this week, they dipped to like 5.25 or so. So that's great. Yeah.
I think we're going to see that,
Yeah, probably for a little while here.
But then you have, homes are still going to go up in value, I think, for a while. There's no indicators at all that there's going to be a crash, which everybody's always worried about, because lending has been totally different on the front end.
Yeah.
So it's a good time to be a buyer, and it's a good time to be a seller because prices are still so high. So we rarely, if ever, have a market where both sides can win one way or another.
Well, and I have people ask me, are you worried that if you buy right now, you're buying at the peak and that sets you up for failure in the future? My response to that is, A, you do need to be careful. Don't overpay up front. You make money on a home on the buy, right? So just be careful when you get into it. But I also think there is a legitimate argument to be made that it's never been a better time to be a landlord than right now. So even if we went into a downward market and you weren't in a position to sell your home for profit, you could absolutely rent it for profit. The numbers right now on the rental side of things are unbelievable. So much so that many people, even though they can make great numbers on the sale of their home, are still renting because the profit that they're making is far better. So I always think, keep that in the back of your mind. And if you're a tenant thinking about buying, use that as motivation because rent is not going to get cheaper in the next 2 years. And it has gone up here in the city. Some neighborhoods are 10%, some are like 25% year over year. So it's rough. It's going to continue to be like that for a year or two, I think.
Yeah, we have our tenants, we had a conversation with them about an increase. and we came to an agreement. It was nominal, just
Hmm.
because they're excellent tenants, and I know they have nowhere else to go. So the
Yeah.
landlord with a heart, maybe. But in general, you're not going to see that. I read all the time that people have a 15% uptick at one time, like
Right.
one pay
One
cycle.
go. Right. And we're used to, I
That's
mean, a general increase, 3 to 5% is
right.
about, yearly increase just to account for some cost of goods going up and taxes and
Yep,
things like that.
yep,
But 10, 15, 20%, that's 5 years of increases in one go. That's a lot.
right. And the landlords are now doing, kind of what the sellers were doing. It's the because I can theory. And if you don't want it, I have
Absolutely.
15 other people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you want to talk about where multiple offers are now? It's my tenants. I can't tell you the last tenant I've had apply for a place that wasn't multiple applications. It's been months now. So that's a new change for Chicago too. Is I think because rates went up, many of those bandwagon buyers jumped back into the tenant pool, and now that
mhm,
is flooded. You've got
yep,
this crazy number of people competing for a very small number of listings. You got a lot of people renew, so a lot didn't come on market. So
right.
yeah, that's a whole different subsection of the world. But I think if you are thinking of buying and the hesitation is that you're worried this is the peak and we're going to reset, one thing that really doesn't ever decline and hasn't for 40 plus years is rent. So
Yep.
if you're looking for a stable asset class, buying something, renting it out, and then holding it till the numbers recover seems to be a sound strategy.
Well, plus, I'm telling people right now, if you're looking to buy and move in the next 2 to 3 years, this is probably not your time unless you're going to rent it. You can keep
Right.
it and rent it. But if you're looking for a buy and hold for 5, 7, 10 years,
Right.
get in, then buy.
Yeah.
We're not flipping houses right now. That's not something we're seeing too much of. But
We have
people who
some, but the
are
margins are different, right? If they were running, 70% like, offer to after repair value
Mhm,
pre-pandemic, we're probably
mhm,
closer to like 80, 85, maybe even
mhm.
90%. So the margins are very, very thin for flipping.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll start to see it come back, particularly as foreclosures and government-owned homes continue to go up. I think that will probably change the flipper outlook if they can get some good
Yep.
deals. But for now, it's pretty slow for sure.
Well, so, all in all, I think what we're saying here is the market is shifting, although I hate that word. It's so overused, but it
The
is
market's always shifting, right?
normalizing,
It's in flux,
right?
and I think it's coming back. Yeah,
Exactly.
normalizing. I love that word. The market is normalizing. I think
Right.
that's
So now there's opportunity for both sides to be successful.
right.
And I think we all enjoy working in an environment where everybody has a little bit of a win, right? So now,
Absolutely. I think if we all approach real estate like that, it would probably be a little bit more enjoyable for everybody. You don't have to
absolutely.
crush the other party into submission. This can be a mutual win, and everybody moves on, and we all feel good about it. And so
Yeah.
I hope that everybody takes that mentality moving forward.
Yeah, my settlements, my closings are known for being pretty happy and everybody gets along. And every now and again, you get that one where you like can't get out of there fast enough,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
way less pleasant for
Happens on
everybody.
occasion.
It does. That's when we run out of the room.
Well, anything else you can think of? I feel like this is great. I feel caught up on the last 6 months of real estate life, and hopefully this has
Me
been
too.
useful to give some tips for both parties here.
Yeah, I think all in all, we're all in a good place right now. I think we're starting to feel like we can better represent our clients on both sides. Buyers have opportunities they didn't have 3 months ago, and sellers are still making money. So it's a win-win-win.
Yeah, I agree. Well,
Well,
awesome.
thank
We'll have to do this again sooner than 6 to 7 months from now. So we will
you.
get our show back on track. But thank you all for watching. If you like this, like, subscribe, follow. We will be releasing more awesome content. Mom, always a pleasure. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, honey. Take care.